Good morning, everybody. Our first map today looks at the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation. Starting from the west, we did see this cutoff low that slowly moved its way down here into parts of Southern California and sits here. It will eventually get picked up by the very strong winds in the subtropical jet stream that are still running across the United States like this around a large subtropical high here. And it's been those winds that have really driven some of the very heavy rainfall we've seen over the last 3 days over parts of the south along the lower Mississippi River Valley into the southeast. And it's going to continue to hit this same region. But some of the streaks you see here on the backside getting into parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, western Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Illinois, even parts of Mississippi. Some of this came down yesterday in the form of sleet and freezing rain. And just before I show you what some of that looks like, just remember what we're still seeing here was kind of left over from the last weekend's snowfall that we see here across this region. Now I want to show you, just go to my Twitter feed here, Cameron Nixon. I asked him if I said, can I just show your videos today, my report, because he's near Tulsa, and as you can kind of see in this particular video, he's kind of thrown a shovel here into the sleet that was falling off of his roof. That's not snow. I mean, those are individual ice pellets, and they form when the atmosphere has a very shallow, warm layer above freezing that's pretty high up in the atmosphere, maybe about a mile above our heads, whereas the surface sub-freezing air is very deep, and therefore what you have is partial melting of a snowflake, which then refreezes around whatever's left over that ice crystal and gives you what you see right in through here. Just a great video. I want to thank Cameron for sending that to us. Now, after this, we're going to continue to see the effect of this ice storm for a few more days. So what we've got here is the latest all hazards weather map from this morning, showing widespread winter storm warnings from Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas. The shading you see right in through here, this is all ice storm warnings in this area. And then we can see that this particular event will stretch into parts of the Ohio Valley. Very dense fog over the southeast today. We can also see the flood watch that's been posted for parts of Louisiana, Arkansas, and eastern Texas. And then behind it, we're still dealing with the Arctic air. And this morning I even traced this back. Remember, this began in Siberia about 10 days ago. So this is some very cold air here. In the west, we continue to see in the San Joaquin Valley and around the San Francisco Bay area, both north and south of it, the risk of a frost or a freeze again today. And there's very strong winds in Southern California as well. But let's go in and take a look at the latest data we've got on this ice storm. This first image comes from the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center out of the National Weather Service, and we're looking at the probability of 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation over the next 72 hours. But it's the risk of these higher amounts. That's 1/4 of an inch, and here's the risk of 1/2 of an inch. So in this part of Texas through here and extending into Oklahoma and Arkansas, I mean, 1/2 inch of ice accumulation will down power lines. It will rip trees to shreds. This will make treacherous travel. This will make a lot of power outages. This is a significant event that we're watching unfold here. And even the forecast models from the National Weather Service are predicting between 1/2 inch and some locations up to 6/10 of an inch of ice accumulation out of this. And so this, I just want to make a point that this is a substantial winter storm event that will be very problematic here in the next few days, in addition to what has already happened. Now, to get the timing of this, let's pick it up with the high-res NAM at 8 o'clock this morning. Remember, the pink in here represents where the models are putting down the ice. So as we play this forward throughout the day on Tuesday, this is Tuesday afternoon and evening, getting into the overnight hours, you'll see that Tuesday has a wave. Then Wednesday morning, here's the next wave coming out on Wednesday morning. This is being aided by that cutoff low that came through California. It is now pulling through Mexico into western Texas. And that's going to dump, could be the majority of this freezing rain right here. This will be tomorrow midday in Texas. That then pushes into Oklahoma and into parts of Arkansas with very cold rain to the south of it. And then again, we're just going to watch this carefully as we go forward. Outside of that, there's some snow moving through Ontario and Quebec, hitting parts of the Great Lakes states here, but primarily around Lake Superior. And so our mainstay of precipitation is really happening with this next 3 days down here. Now, after this goes through, this is going to clear out, and we're going to get a stretch in through here of drier weather until next week. But as it goes through, it will be producing quite a bit of precip. So let's get an idea about that. This is today's 12Z WPC run on total precip through the next 7 days. And again, we're seeing the effect here of the kind of split flow in the Pacific, the deeper trough in the Hudson Bay, and the influence of that subtropical ridge. I mean, most of what you see here is coming in the next 2 to 3 days. All right. Now I'll take a look at the west in just a few moments, but I want to point something out here. The very dry weather that we're experiencing is because of this flow. The Pacific jet is, again, failing to extend all the way to the west coast. There's a little trough here that's going to go into British Columbia, but having split flow like this across the west is just too weak to deliver good moisture. And then as it kind of converges in through here, this is a drier pattern if you're stuck in between this. But to the south, where all this is running over this ridge, that's where we have our best chances at getting the moisture. This also signifies a change in the temperature pattern. As the Hudson Trough shifts more toward the north, it's going to carry that colder air farther to the east as this flow sets things up for a very cold late week and early weekend for parts of New England. Now, the animation we're looking at here is kind of on a pretty famous meteorological holiday. This is what the weather pattern is going to look like on Groundhog Day. And just to kind of give you a precursor of this, I don't think they actually take this into consideration, but the forecast for cloud cover at 6 a.m. on Thursday, Groundhog's Day, for Pennsylvania is to be overcast. So the chances, I think, of seeing a shadow are pretty slim, given that there's going to be a lot of cloud cover. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. Okay, let's go right into the European model to see this all shake down with a little bit longer range outlook. So we've seen through Tuesday into Wednesday. So there's that big push we're going to be watching on Wednesday. And as we go toward Thursday into Friday, that shortwave just off the coast drags a front close to the west coast. It's going to hit right in through here. You'll see it while we watch the rain finally exit the southeast. Now, as that occurs, as that front hits, the rain exits southeast, a big dome of high pressure settles in over the Great Lakes, and this is part of what's going to send parts of New England into some of the coldest air they've seen this season. But we got to keep an eye here on the Pacific Northwest this weekend, because we see a little clipper that comes out of Alberta, delivering some snow through the Canadian Prairie, the northern part of the Canadian Prairie, over toward Ontario and Quebec. But on Sunday, I'm going to be watching this low coming into the Pacific Northwest. It's going to put down some decent snow in the Cascade Mountains, drags a front through Northern California. But as it moves over the Rocky Mountains, it splits into two pieces. You're going to see one that's going to run just like this, and a second wave that comes down to Colorado and comes out like that. So this is Monday. Next week, see the two waves splitting there? The northern one delivering the snow in this area, the southern one coming out of Colorado, a little bit lagged, coming out on Tuesday here. And it could be the next system that rolls through the midsection of the United States. All right, but that's more than a week out from right now. But the model's been pretty consistent with that view overall. So, snowfall, not a whole lot with this. One is going to be a lack of cold air later. And two, just no major systems rolling through the central part of the United States. So primarily, it's Clipper 1, Clipper 2, and then the system that starts off Clipper 2 here, it comes into the Pacific Northwest, but as it comes out into the plains, just doesn't have enough cold air to work with next week to make that happen. Now, thinking about this whole pattern, I'm just going to walk you out here, looking down on the North Pole, starting on February 7th. As we play this forward, you see this deeper trough here. It's not truly connecting with a lot of cold air farther to the south, so it's kind of keeping it all right here over the Canadian archipelago. And as we play this out, longer range, what I'm missing in this pattern, let's just take it out here, I don't know, to February 13th. We've got a four-wave pattern, 1, 2, there's a third one here, and a fourth there. But to be honest, I know some people are talking about high latitude blocking, but I don't see it. I just see a pattern that's actually lacking, like a big ridge over Alaska or Greenland. Even though there's a weak ridge over Scandinavia, it's not enough to fully displace a lot of cold air. And because of that, the flow is a bit weaker, it's a bit more zonal, and that's why even out into week 2, we don't see strong precipitation anomalies one way or the other. There's just no indications of a very, very active pattern setting up. What it will do, though, is kick that cold air to the east. So here's today, Tuesday's high temperatures. That's Wednesday. Getting into Thursday, here's the next wave of cold air coming in the northern plains out of the Canadian Prairie, moves to the Great Lakes in New England by Friday. But notice by Friday, parts of Montana will have over a 60-degree change in temperatures from where they were in the last couple of days to where they'll be on Friday. And that colder air, if we just watch, moves off the East Coast on Saturday into Sunday, and there's overall broad warmth across the country for a lot of folks compared to normal for early February. To finish this up, let's look at what the jet stream should be doing, or is forecast to do, I should say, by February 10th. We still don't have the full extension. This is the weaker flow in through here that's got me concerned about the west coast, but this right here is important to watch. We talked about it in last night's long-range outlook. That could be the development for the first time in several winters of the subtropical jet that could eventually, by March, move north. I'll watch that carefully. But as it stands, that pattern gives you something like this with respect to temperatures. A lack of high latitude blocking or zonal flow. We just see a lot of warmth opening up as we press toward the middle of this month. And the cold you see here is probably a feedback in the model, primarily due to the snow cover that's in this area. No true connection to some deep cold air through the middle of this month. Okay, lastly, I just want to show you in the report we have another discussion about the mid-February to mid-March European weeklies and what this means. And we also cover a bit more on South America. Some of the new NDVI data after all of that heavier rain we saw in mid to late January has brought, for Buenos Aires, Cordoba, and Santa Fe, the NDVI values finally out of the basement here. And that will be a relatively short-lived feature, though, because much of the next 15 days continues to show drier conditions in this area as temperatures start to really warm up. Central Brazil still pushing big yields with the heavier rain, and the drier to the north should aid in the harvest progress and the planting of the safrinha crop. So we'll wrap it up there, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Thanks.